Hello, friends. Tashin here, coming to you from South Brooklyn. I want to talk about money today and about fundraising and about responsible use of money. I've been having a lot of thoughts about money for a lot of reasons. I guess the biggest thought at the highest level is a realization that probably is obvious to many of you, but was not completely obvious to me beforehand, which is that generosity and commerce can coexist and be mutually supportive, and that they are themselves collaborating and competing in an evolutionary sense. I've spent most of the last decade of my life operating on a generosity model. With some exceptions, I have been supported by commerce, but mostly by generosity, and was steering towards generosity and kind of preferring generosity. And I realized, no, they're both good and they're mutually supportive, and I should do both and let them collaborate and compete with each other within my own system, within the larger ecosystem, etc. Big insight for Tashin. So let's go. More generosity, more commerce, more mutually supportive relationships between them. But I want to talk about a very specific set of insights and reasoning about this. So for some context, I did fundraising in my 20s, and I learned how to do fundraising at the monastery that I trained at in the context of a nonprofit. And the organization was legally a nonprofit, and we were raising money to be able to do our monastic training. And I learned how to do fundraising in that context. And I got pretty good at it, I would say. Not the best, but decent. And I learned a lot, and I digested pretty much everything that I learned into a blog post, Learn You a Fundraising for Great Good, which is an allusion to the Haskell book, Learn You a Haskell for something. I forget now. I never read much of it because I never got good at Haskell. At least I haven't yet. But anyway, one of the things that I learned about fundraising that I did not mention in that post, to my knowledge, is a really counterintuitive learning. But this has been so important to me for ethically, responsibly using money, especially money that's given by generosity. And I'll just start by telling you a story, which is a couple of years ago, I ran this retreat, and it was a really good retreat, and we did a great job, and people were really impressed. And there was someone at that retreat who wanted to give me a lot of money and wanted to give the Service Guild a lot of money. And I don't remember how much they wanted to give, but it was a lot for me at the time. And I got really uncomfortable and said, hey, I'm not comfortable receiving money from you. There's a lot that was going on. I would, for one thing, I was just going to have to sort out how to legally receive that money in a nonprofit context, and that felt overwhelming. But also, what I said at the time was, money's just really not our bottleneck right then. At the time, this was late 2023, money was not the bottleneck of the Service Guild. It was really like culture, I would say. That's been the bottleneck for the last couple of years, is shared understanding of what the guild is and what we want it to be, and getting everyone on the same page, and even figuring out what page we want to be on. And we've spent a lot of the last couple of years doing that. And of course, there's still work to be doing there. Actually, money is our bottleneck now. Spoiler alert. I could use more money for me and for the Service Guild. So, but anyway, at the time, money was not our bottleneck. And I was like, look, I can't responsibly spend the money that you want to give me. And I'm also not ready to set up infrastructure to receive it legally. And that was surprising to this potential donor, because they were presumably used to organizations that are like, yeah, we're happy to take your money. We'll take as much as you'll give us. And that's really a default stance for a lot of nonprofits. And of course, a lot of nonprofits really can receive that money and use it well up to a certain point. But that's exactly the point, is that, to me, if you are operating on generosity, whether it's as an individual or as a nonprofit or whatever it is, it's important to know what amount of money you can responsibly receive and use and allocate at any given time. There has to be a limit. If I gave a nonprofit $1 trillion, presumably a little local city nonprofit wouldn't know what to do with $1 trillion and would have a hard time spending that. And that would actually cause them problems where suddenly they'd have internal politics and challenges of figuring out what to do with the money. And, a little local city nonprofit that has 2 people shouldn't receive $1 trillion because they're not going to know what to do with it. And they're not going to be able to use that well. But there are people who could use $1 trillion well. But even those people, there's a limit to how much money they could responsibly spend and allocate and deploy effectively. And there's almost like a skill level hierarchy here, or like a player level capacity. And so at the time, I felt like the most that I could responsibly use was $10,000 or $20,000 or something. And that was going to be enough to support me for a while and to deploy on some specific projects. And yeah, money really wasn't our bottleneck. I was like, I have enough money to eat food and pay for software and get the things that we need. And there's no specific projects that we need to do that need a lot of money. We'd already finished that retreat, which was a bigger project. And yeah, our budget for that was $4,000 at the time. What we ended up spending was $4,000 for 15 people for 10 days or something. And it's like, that's a very, very economical project. If anyone's run a week-long retreat or a 10-day retreat before, they would know $4,000 is not a lot of money to spend on such a thing, but we really made it work. And I just did another version of this retreat just now, and what we ended up spending was about $8,000 for a very similar thing. And that's a small budget that's one of the biggest projects that I've done, and that's a pretty small budget. In fact, I think that's the biggest project I've personally done or done through the Service Guild now, because if I recall correctly, the animated music video that I made in 2021 was $5,000 or $6,000. So now that we've spent $8,000 on this project, that's the biggest project that the Service Guild has done so far. And I'm very proud actually of how little money we've spent to pull off such a big project that has had such a big impact. This was for the Love Department. It's sort of a love retreat with a very specific container, and people who come to this event have really benefited from it and had their lives changed, and that impact has rippled out into their communities and all of that. So that's, to me, an impressive use of money where we have a huge impact for a very small expenditure of money. But to come back to my point, if you're raising money for a nonprofit or for anything that's by generosity, I think it's important to know how much you can responsibly spend. And there just has to be a breaking point where you can't responsibly accept or allocate or use money anymore. And that's going to be different for everyone. Maybe it's $10, maybe it's $100, maybe it's $1,000, maybe it's $10,000, maybe it's $100,000, maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's $10 million, maybe it's $100 million, maybe it's $1 billion, maybe it's $10 billion. I don't know. Maybe it's $1 trillion. Go off if that's you. I can't responsibly spend $1 trillion at this point in time. And this has been on my mind recently because money currently is the bottleneck for the Service Guild. Actively. I think, God willing, it won't be for very long, but I need to rearrange some pieces to make my own life more sustainable and make more money for myself and also for the Guild. And there's projects that I'd like to do through the Guild that will need money. And I'm working on all of that. But I've been trying to figure out, like, what kind of money do I need? And I was having a conversation with someone about this and sharing this idea, and I was like, yeah, probably $1 million is my number of what I could responsibly spend or allocate. And I was like, oh, I should make that list. Visa has a tweet about how it's really useful to have a list of what you would do with increased resources, whether it's money or also time or energy, if you could. And it's useful to know that yourself, and also to be able to show it to people if they ask and have that available. So I was like, oh, I should make a list. And it took me a week or two, but I made the list and very quickly realized, $1 million was underselling myself. And the first version of the list I made was about $10 million. I was like, yeah, I think I could responsibly use and allocate $10 million at this time. And I had a very clear list. It's almost like a Christmas list of this is what I would do with it. And it'd be for me and for the Service Guild and for the world. And it's, the departments, love, curiosity, empowerment. And also I hope we have future departments in the future. And then in making the list, I was like, even this is not sufficiently ambitious. And so I added more things and very quickly got to about 33 million. So as of today, October 2025, my own internal estimate of how much I could responsibly use and allocate and spend would be about 33 million. I would have to make some changes in order to be able to receive that money. So maybe it's actually quite a bit lower literally today, but like in the near future, in the next months, I think I could figure out how to receive, use, spend, allocate up to something like $33 million. And part of the jump with going from 10 to 33 was just allocating money for specific departments where there's like almost like an endowment fund or something like that for the love department, for the curiosity department, for the empowerment department that it could use to further its aims. And then also for future departments. And I would like there to be an art or creativity or expression department. I would like for there to be an earth department. I would like for there to be a peace department. I would like for there to be a wisdom department. There are probably other service related themes that we could benefit from having. And so having a larger endowment for those future departments would be very useful. And anyway, that's just pretty straightforward to add. It's like, I should have those. But there are also very simple tactical things that some of the items on the list are like $500 or $1,000 or $3,000 or $10,000 or $50,000 for this or for that or for the other thing. And I have that list. It's on my phone. It's on my notes. And my allies and friends and supporters are welcome to ask to see it. And maybe I'll make a public version of this at some point. But for now, it's semi-private, where if you're a trusted friend, I'm happy to show it to you. But my own number, in any case, is in the millions of dollars, even though my current annual income is, I don't really know, but in the small tens of thousands of dollars. My Patreon right now makes, $1,800 a month on average. Of course, month by month, that's quite different because different people pay on different schedules. But yeah, that's a very interesting money situation to be making very little money, relatively. I mean, I have other sources of income besides my Patreon, but none of them are that large right now, and I need to be expanding that through commerce. But yeah, to be making relatively very little money from the perspective of the American economy, and then also be like, I'm pretty confident myself I could spend millions of dollars and use that well. And I know what I would do with it and in what order. And presumably if I showed that list to someone, they would be like, I would like to help with this one specifically. Like, this is more resonant for me, or I'd be really excited about you having that money for this thing. And some would be more or less exciting or relevant or useful. And I really trust that. But yeah, it felt like such a good exercise to make this list. And it does feel ethical and important to know one's number at any given time. I expect this number to change in the future. So I might have a different number, even in a much larger number in the future. But to know one's number and be like, this, or just order of magnitude of above this amount, I can't responsibly spend more. And, I think when I was helping run a nonprofit, our number was like 100 million or something. It was like, up to this point, that's what we could do. And there are other nonprofits and other causes that you could use more than that. If you happen to have more than $100 million that you want to give, just give us this amount. We'll take care of it. We'll use it well for the purpose that you care about, and give the surplus to other people. So that's how I think about that, and how I think about it at this time in late 2025. as I steward the Service Guild and its endeavors. I hope this has been interesting to you, and sending you love.